Good morning. Happy Friday, everybody. I'm Marc Middleton, live here at Growing Boulder headquarters in Orlando, Florida. Kind of hard to believe that August will arrive this weekend. Of course, we're all trying to get back to some version of normal life, but it has been tough. And I don't think there is any question that there is a new normal evolving, and we're all just going to have to evolve with it. We're going to have to figure out a way to deal with it, adapt, and accommodate. That's one of my personal mantras. So I wonder, do you have any? If you have a personal mantra that you would be willing to share, we would love to hear it. So let's have it. Just put it in a comment and we'll pass it on, because I'm certain it's something that's important to you. Also wondering if you guys have been watching the Olympics. I love the Olympics because sports are really the only real live drama anymore. You just don't know what's going to happen. And we've seen a lot of that this week. And I think we all have different things that will make us emotional or they'll make us weepy. I can watch the saddest movie that there is, and I feel the sadness, but I, nowhere near close to crying. Old Yeller may be an exception. I haven't seen it in probably 50 years, but Old Yeller got to me back in the day. But for me, the exception to all of that are sports. There's nothing like seeing someone accomplish something that truly is really, really important to them and see the emotion that they have that gets to me. And it's even worse or better, depending upon how you look at it, when you see their family and how they react. The stuff with Caleb Dressel and his family in the Olympic swimming venue, if you saw that, you know what I'm talking about. The stuff with Suni Lee last night after she, surprised everybody but herself and her family, I'm sure, to win the all-around gold medal in women's gymnastics. It was really, really great stuff. So that's what gets me. I get a little weepy every time I see somebody celebrate a major accomplishment in front of or with their family and their friends. It really has been pretty exciting. We started doing these little live Facebook shows more than a year ago. We started because of the pandemic. It was our effort to try to find a way to stay in touch with you, just to continue to communicate. And our intention from the beginning was, eventually just to wind them down and stop them. But on the contrary, I think we're not only going to keep this going, some version of it, at least here on Facebook, but we will be doing more and more and more of it. And not just on Facebook, but other places. Perfect example, we talked to Rowdy Gaines live here, I think Tuesday night from Tokyo. It was 6:45 in the morning. He was getting ready to do the swimming venue for NBC, his 8th Olympics, and we just sat down and popped him in live. Yesterday, I chatted for over an hour with a 79-year-old grandmother who plays World of Warcraft on Twitch. She just started streaming less than a year ago, and she's already got 40,000 people who follow her. She streams every single day, playing the game and chatting with her people. Bill Schaefer and I interviewed yesterday from our office here a 101-year-old woman, the world's oldest lobsterer. She lives in Maine. She goes out on a boat almost daily with her 76-year-old son, and she runs the traps. She baits the traps. She takes the lobsters out of their traps, and then she takes them home and she cooks them for her kids and her grandkids and her great-great-grandkids. It's really, really fun and interesting. So, what actually is going to happen is we will just We're turning our office. Our office is very rapidly evolving into a live studio where we can go live from 5 or 6 different locations inside our offices here at just the drop of the hat. This is the perfect location. We've got the lighting is set, the audio, the video, everything is ready to just flip a switch and we can do it. So, I love this. This is one of the many things that we've adapted and accommodated to. We learned from the pandemic that this was a good way to communicate. So I don't think we're ever going to stop that. The show that we're doing right now, as you guys know, I imagine most of you at least, we're pushing this live to Facebook, but we're also pushing it live to our YouTube channel. We're pushing it live to our Twitch channel. And today, for the first time ever, we are also pushing this show live to our LinkedIn channel, which is a relatively new feature of LinkedIn that's just been made available. And we're pushing this one in particular to LinkedIn because, as you guys know, LinkedIn focuses primarily on professional networking and career development. And the guy that we're about to talk to is a heavy hitter. In fact, this guy is an icon. I have been quoting him, not just from the day that I started Growing Bolder, but for years before that. His insights, his research, they have helped us understand the challenge and the opportunity of our business mission here at Growing Bolder, which, as you guys know or should know by now, is truly nothing short of changing the culture of aging worldwide for all people for all time. What we're talking about isn't just about trying to help older people. It's about trying to inspire younger people to know that more is possible, that it's never too late to reinvent yourself, that you can never stop believing that you can make the rest of your life the best of your life. I said this in a post this morning as I was encouraging people to join us for this interview, that I really kind of hate the word visionary because it's thrown around so casually, and so many people want to claim it for themselves. Oh, I'm a visionary this and I'm a visionary that. But this guy really is the real deal. He lives in Northern California, but he was actually here in our offices in Orlando recently to brainstorm. Let's just say to brainstorm about some shared passions, and we'll leave it at that for now. But we did take the opportunity to sit down and have a great conversation with Dr. Ken Dychtwald. We are both excited and honored that the man himself is in our office today. Ken Dychtwald is and has been for more than 40 years now the world's #1 thought leader and influencer when it comes to the cultural, the social, and the business implications of global aging. Ken is a psychologist, he's a gerontologist, a sociologist, an entrepreneur, a filmmaker, and he's the founder of AgeWave, which is a renowned think tank and consultancy where he has been engaged by literally half of the Fortune 500 companies to help them understand how to speak to and how to market to the most lucrative and the most underserved demographic of all time, older adults. Ken, welcome to GBHQ. It's thrilled to have you here.
It's great to be with you. Good to see you, Mark.
First of all, let's start with this. Your 18th book, and I think it's fair to say your most personal book of all. It's called Radical Curiosity, One Man's Search for Cosmic Magic and a Purposeful Life. And I know what curiosity is, Ken. What is radical curiosity, and how has it defined your life?
Well, here's what happened. A couple things occurred at the same time. One was my dad passed away about 8-9 years ago, and I don't know what it's like for everyone else when a parent dies. And I was in a pretty good place with my dad, and I was with him the night he died, and we were on good terms. But I kind of felt a lot of stuff rumbling around inside of me afterward, and I thought, I want to make sure that I've gathered my lessons and my stories to pass on to my own kids, because I might have 30 more years, I might have 30 more days, who knows. And our company was doing research on inheritance and legacy. And one of the things that struck me was that back in the 15th century, a number of the religious traditions believed that every person should prepare a material will, and that's, I have this stuff and this is where I want it divided and given to generations to come. And then they also had what was called an ethical will, which is kind of a strange phrase, but ethical will. And the idea of the ethical will is that it's up to each of us to take the stories of our life and gather them and the lessons we've learned and try to make sense of them. And think about how you might pass them to your children and their children and maybe even generations that you never meet. And when I started gathering these stories over a number of years, I met with a publisher. And he said to me, you know, the driving force in your life is curiosity. And I thought, I've never really thought of that, but yeah, I guess so. And as I cover in the book, I had kind of an odd storyline. I started out going to school to be a physicist and then dropped out and moved to Esalen Institute in Big Sur and became a yoga teacher and an expert on the mind and body. And then I started the holistic health field. But then I made a right turn into the aging field. And then not really knowing much about business, I decided to try to be an entrepreneur. And I had a lot of successes and a few failures and then some more successes. So I've lived a life of curiosity, and a lot of what's driven it is this human potential belief that each of us has probably got talents and creativities and abilities that we don't usually tap into. We only maybe use 5% of who we could be. And I've just kept trying to turn on more of my burners over the decades.
I've always admired people who kind of found their purpose, early on in life. And I know that you were 23 years old, 1973, and you became the co-director of a national project that was funded by the National Institutes of Health to examine how what was newly popular back then, yoga, meditation, and biofeedback, might ultimately impact older adults. How does a 23-year-old Ken Dychtwald get that gig?
It was like a sort of accident, like my kids think that you're supposed to envision life and it happens, Much in my life, Mark, has happened by accident or serendipity. I was living in Big Sur and was teaching at Esalen and teaching in accounting groups and yoga and writing Body Mind when I was 22, 23. And I lived in a little cabin. It was $150 a month and it was kind of a dump. But I thought, I'm going to stay here forever. I found my home base. And then one morning, bang, 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 bang on the door. Some crazy looking guy, looked like Clint Eastwood on acid. And I never met this guy, and he told me he was my landlord, but he'd been living in New Zealand, but he wanted me out of the house. And I said, no, I've got a lease. I could stay here for another 2 years. And he says, no, I want you out now. And I said, I'm not going anywhere. And then he pulls out of his vest a gun. And he puts a gun to my forehead. And no one had ever done that before. And I thought, I guess I'm leaving Big Sur today. And a friend of mine connected me with a friend of hers who was in Berkeley, who had this idea of creating a human potential curriculum. We didn't know what to call it. Buddy of ours, Stuart Brand, had just done a thing called the Whole Earth Catalog. He had a little extra money in his foundation. Gave us $5,000. We had to make up a name. We made up the name Holistic Health. And so we were the Holistic Health Council. And right at the very last minute, we had created this year-long curriculum, not a weekend workshop, not an evening lecture, but a year-long course integrating meditation and Tai Chi and proper nutrition and mindfulness and journal writing and all the kinds of things that are now popular, but this was like way back in the early stages. And Gay Luce, the woman who was my partner on this project, her mother had cardiovascular issues, hypertension. And Gay said, all right, she's an old woman. Well, let's say, what if we tried out some biofeedback and meditation and deep breathing with her? And she got better. And so Gay said, hey, let's do this whole project with old people. And I thought, old people? I was like just turning 24. I was kind of a hippie guy. I was like, do I want to spend my career with old people? And then to jump through a lot of hoops and get to the punchline, they were fabulous. They gobbled the stuff up, and they were coming in on canes and walkers and dancing out and writing books and falling in love. And we found that, wow, the human body has enormous capacity to fix itself. And it's very protein, meaning, elastic. It can be made better. And, we are more inclined in modern medicine to try to use drugs or surgery or chemotherapies. And these more natural techniques were really kind of working. But I will tell you, the punchline for me came in about the third month, and I was with the project for 5 years, and then we set up similar programs all over the world. This was before Andy Weil and Dean Ornish and some of the programs that are more famous now. We were sort of the first one in. I said to the people in our group, we'd meet for 3 hours a week, and they'd be 70, 80, 90 years old. And then they'd have homework assignments. Every one of them had to do breathing exercises or meditations or practice Tai Chi. But I said this week, hey, next week I want you all to bring pictures of when you were my age. And this is going to sound really dopey, but I thought that old people were always old people. I think it's probably a lot of 30-year-olds, maybe some of the people watching have kids who think, oh, mom was always old. And they brought in pictures of themselves when they were young, and they were beautiful, and they were strapping men and sexy women and military, and they weren't old people at all. They were just like me, my friends. They were like us. The other thing was I asked people to graph their life. And they said, what do do you mean graph your life? I said, I don't know, I just made that up. But here's a piece of graph paper. Next week, I want to see what was the highs, what was the lows.
Wow.
And they came back. And by the way, I'd recommend that everybody try that. They came back, and here was the big surprise for me. Mostly they felt their lives were lows. There were high points and high moments, but I was in a marriage for 20 years that had never made me happy. Or I had a job that my parents wanted me to do, but I really wanted to be a musician. Instead, I was a dentist. And what I realized is that looking back at life from 90 years old, you can see the moves you made and the choices you made. And the lesson they taught me that day was, you don't want to have that many regrets. You want to get on with the things you want to do. You want to try to drop the people and the activities that are not worth your time. And you want to try to make something of yourself. And so I've lived my life with a kind of an intensity. And it was because I had the benefit of learning from elders when I was still a kid. I think every high school kid should get a course from a group of elders about life, because we stumble along for decades before we get old enough and wise enough to kind of know how it all works. Why not get some lessons, not from some pop psychologist or some television preacher? Why not get some lessons from elders who can really teach you what matters in life?
I want to ask you about that, because I know you're a big believer in mentors, and you've had some great ones. But in 1972, and you cover this in your book, you wrote a letter of independence to your parents, and in it you said, "There are several things about me that I'm coming to understand. First, I am an explorer. I am really curious about nearly everything, and I will not rest until I have found the answers to these questions. Underneath it all, I believe I am a seeker of knowledge. I am a searcher for excitement. I am an explorer of the unexplored." So now, 50 years later, what has the explorer discovered? Has the journey given you the answers?
First, two things. It's pretty crazy that I wrote that letter, and I got a copy of it from my mom and dad later in life, and I thought, wow. I was kind of pushing their buttons, because I was also saying, leave me alone, let me do what I want, and trust me. The other thing is that in the book, there's a letter from my son when he was in his 20s to my wife and I, and it's like identical. It's really eerie. The other thing is I've learned a number of things. First, I think a life of curiosity and discovery has been a blast. Second, I've learned that there's a lot of people who are willing to mentor you. You know, I had Jimmy Carter as a mentor. I had Ronald Reagan as a mentor. It wasn't their political party I was looking for. I had the good fortune of encountering Nelson Mandela. Bucky Fuller helped me figure out what I was trying to do with my life. And Maggie Kuhn, the head of the Grey Panthers, and I were very close. And Robert Butler, the founder of the National Institutes on Aging. And what I found was that if I sought out people of power and people of experience, they didn't turn me away. They kind of saw in me somebody who really wanted to make a difference in the world. And I think mentors like to have mentees to work with. So that's the thing I learned. I also learned it's really important to take care of your body. People are really cavalier about their bodies. And you can get away with that when you're 20 or 30. But man, all that stuff you didn't do right, if you were smoking cigarettes, or you're carrying extra body weight, or you didn't work your limbs, you didn't do your stretches, you hit 60 or 70 and it starts to show up as some really unpleasant stuff. So taking really good care of your body. And two more things. I did a study a few years ago in 20 countries, representing 2/3 of the world's population. And we asked elders, what was the principal ingredient in a healthy longevity? And I'm telling you, it didn't matter if we were in Brazil or Germany or Indonesia, the same answers came back. And what people said was, it's the people you love and the people who love you, your relationships. And if your relationships are struggling, make them better. And if you need new friends, go out and make new friends. But it's not about how big your house is or how much money you have in the bank. Those are all kind of nice, but relationships. And the last thing I want to say that I learned in this life, I was kind of a solo guy in my 20s and early 30s. I was kind of a make love, not war, hippie yoga guy. And I got really lucky. I fell in love, and I've remarried my wife 39 times. We get remarried every year, different location, different religion. And people say to me, why do you do that? And I always say, well, how come you don't? You know, marriages require continued commitment, you know, and we've got 2 fabulous kids. So I've come to see that separate from some of the money I've made or powerful people I've met, I kind of find myself to be a family man. I really love my wife and kids, and I get my biggest kick out of that relationship.
Yeah, I love that about your book, where you talk about Maddie, your wife, and Zach, your son, and Casey, your daughter. I mean, it really is just an amazing family, and really, really, admirable.
By the way, I want to say, see this gray hair?
Yeah.
My kids have given me this gray hair, man.
Well,
they don't always behave.
Yeah.
You know, being a parent is a lot crazier than I think it might have been for our own parents.
Well, you know, they did and behaved a lot like you did when you were young, so you kind of had it coming to you. There's a lot of talk now, Ken, about a longevity revolution, and science and medicine and technology are conspiring to keep people alive longer. Can that be a good thing? Is it necessarily a good thing? Because I have this, I can go to the dark side pretty quickly, and I can foresee a day when we're kept alive longer than we really should be with a quality of life, and because there's a business motive behind it. If you can keep someone in a bed, breathing oxygen, hooked up to expensive machines, you can make a lot of money. Is that something that concerns you, or am I silly?
Yeah, we're now diving into the deep waters here. So let me tell you what some of my top line thoughts are. First of all, where are we? Humans been around, let's say 100,000 years. Throughout 99% of that time, the average life expectancy has been under 18. Now, some of your viewers are going to say, that can't be true. There have been 50-year-olds and 70-year-olds. Yeah, but not many at all. Lots of people died in the first months of life. Life expectancy was very low because of medical breakthroughs in the 20th century, antibiotics, polio vaccine, public health, pharmacopoeia, self-care. Living to 80 or 90 today is kind of normal. And whoa, nobody would have imagined that a century ago. And I work in the field of geroscience, and I'm hearing some way out futurists who say that for kids born today, half of them are going to live to see their 120th birthday. There are some breakthroughs maybe 10, 20 years out that could radically change the number of years we live. Here's the 2 problems. All right. One of the problems is we got to match health span to lifespan. I mean, if you're going to live 100 years, but you're going to have Alzheimer's for 33 of them.
Yeah.
Not for me. Not for me. Or if you're going to live 90 years, but it'd be in terrible pain for 22 years. No, we gotta live a long, healthy life. And frankly, I think the abundance of health is more important than having extra years. The second thing is, what the heck are we going to do with ourselves? This might sound a little bit peculiar to you, but I've been studying this now for 47 years. That last 10 years, the average retiree in America watched 47 hours of television a week, and only 24% of the retired population did any volunteering at all. So what we've got is we got a whole lot of people living not just a couple, 3, 4 years in retirement, but 20, 30 years, not really making much of themselves. And so I'm an old human potential guy. My feeling is, man, when you think of all the potential creativity, contribution, emotional intelligence, volunteerism, mentoring that our older adults could be doing and still have plenty of time to goof off and take wonderful trips and play golf, I'd like to see a better version of maturity and aging in which older people weren't, okay boomers, weren't just kind of grooving on their benefits and pensions and living the life, but we're playing a more active part in their communities.
Amen. I was surprised in your book how amazingly candid and vulnerable Ken Dychtwald is when it comes to your fears about growing older yourself, your fears about suffering, your fears about losing those you love, your fears about dying. Has working in the field, studying older people, seeing the trajectory of life made it easier for you to think about those kinds of things, or more difficult?
First, let me say I've lived my life, as a public speaker and as a so-called expert. So I've gotten to meet all the retired presidents and all the retired generals and all the pop psychologists and all the best-selling authors. And most people are con artists. I mean, they may be good people, but they're not telling you their truth. They're putting something out. It's supposed to look good. I decided in this book that after 17 other books, I needed to come from my heart. And I was always the youngest kid in the room. And now I'm 71. So I'm an elder. And I'm kind of liking it. I'm kind of feeling like, oh, this white hair, circling the sun 71 times. I got some perspective that I never had before. And I don't want to have society make me irrelevant. So I got to battle to stay current. Also, I've seen a lot of older people make themselves irrelevant. They don't learn TikTok. They don't know who Charlie D'Amelio is. They don't understand why Childish Gambino is so important. They're out of touch. They're still living in Woodstock, And I think that if you're going to be a modern person, even though you might be 60 or 90, you got to spend a couple, 3 hours a day learning the modern times. If you don't know how to work tech, or you don't know who the young people are, and they're a different racial, ethnic, sexual identity cohort, you're going to be out of touch. The other thing is that I've seen a lot of people struggle and suffer. My dad went blind. Never would have imagined that. He had diabetes. He was a junk food eater, and before you knew it, he had macular degeneration. Then he lost all his vision. He was furious. Last 10 years of my life, every night my father would call me and tell me he was going to kill himself. He didn't want to be alive. He didn't. Then he started saying, and our mom had Alzheimer's. Who would have imagined that this beautiful, wonderful, loving human being would have to wear a diaper and would be walking into the wall and didn't know who we were. And so the two of them were talking about, my father's talking about, maybe we should just take ourselves out. And I thought to myself, I thought of an example, and I won't go too crazy on you, but so in my hippie years, I went and visited my parents one time. I was living in Allentown, Pennsylvania for a few months, and I had a motorcycle. My folks were in New Jersey, and I drove to see them, and my father and I had a really bad fight. And we were out face to face, and I was really ready to just whack him. And you don't understand me, and I'm living a new life. I'm in the new age. And so as not to have a fist fight, I decided I was going to go to the bedroom and jump out the window and get on the motorcycle and drive the 2 hours. It was pouring rain, and all I had was a t-shirt and a trench coat. And there were no helmets needed then. And I'm driving, screaming and crying and angry at my dad all the way back to Pennsylvania. And then it's like 2 a.m. I'm pulling into my apartment, and I look up the street, and there's a car turning around. And I looked at the car, it was my dad. He had the lights off. My father had followed me all the way to Pennsylvania to make sure I was okay. So I felt in his later years, I had to follow him to where he was going and make sure he was okay. And so I was with him when he passed. And I helped him calm down. He was angry and scared. And so there are parts of aging, loss, pain, suffering, I'm not keen on. I don't want to be kept alive, as you mentioned, jacked up to equipment and technology for weeks or years. It's not a version of aging I want. And I don't want to be a used to be guy. I meet a lot of people who, oh, this is what I used to be and now I'm a nothing. And I think it's okay if you want to just live a relaxed life, but I like the idea of being fully engaged in the dance of life. And I'd like to keep that going throughout all my years.
You write about legacy, and are you getting a little more revolutionary as you get older? I mean, you've built a business being the guy in terms of consumerism, in terms of, B2B kind of stuff. It seems to me like you're, with this book and with the conversations we've had, you're starting to focus more on changing the culture of aging for individuals. And great for the business opportunity, but let's talk about the personal opportunity.
You're asking good questions. I'm going to give you an honest answer.
Give it to me.
So one of my mentors was a guy named Robert Butler. He was elegant human being. He was a physician. He was a Pulitzer Prize-winning author. He was the director of the National Institutes on Aging. And he was the guy that started geriatric medicine in the United States. And his plan was to have geriatrics being a competency that was everywhere. And he died a few years ago. And a few of us got together and we said, boy, what a great guy. How lucky we were to have him as a mentor. But you know what? He didn't get the job done. And I was friends with Maggie Kuhn in the 1970s. Maggie started the Grey Panthers to eliminate ageism. And recently people have asked me, you knew Maggie, you guys were talking about ageism in the 1970s. Hey, guess what? You didn't get the job done. What's wrong with you guys? Were you too busy trying to make money and get on TV to get the job done? I've been doing a lot of thinking about that. I feel like I'm at an age now where it's kind of gloves off. I'm really tired of the TV commercials that are really nasty and make older people out to be buffoons. And guess what? I'm an older person now. You got to deal with me. And I'm really tired of the fact that, people, don't want to be older. Oh, we got to be anti-aging. We want to be young forever. It's no, man, you don't want to be young forever. It's like if my 31-year-old son said to me, Daddy, I'd still like to be 4, I'd take him to a psychiatrist. Life is a cycle, like life is an arc, we become more of who we are. And so I feel like I'm fighting harder now than ever before. I feel like I can sort of see the clock watch on the wall, the clock's ticking, and I don't know how much more time I've got, but there's some things I'm trying to get done. Trying to get a more positive image of aging out there, accepted. Gotta wipe out this ageism stuff. Now, is it as bad as sexism or racism? Probably not. But it's still nasty that, that just because you're 60 or 70, you don't see yourself represented in TV. If you're in a movie, you're some kind of goofball old uncle, We got this thing wrong. And the other thing is that I think that we need better relationships between the generations. I think those of us who are older need to be more connected to the young, both because we can teach them a little bit of what we've learned, and also I think there's so much to be extracting from young people, their music, their beats, their sounds, their passions, their fears, their hopes. That's the way it ought to be. And so, yeah, I'm going to bat against the medical system. I'm going to bat against the advertising community. I'm going to bat against the financial industry. I'm going to bat against a lot of these people who used to be the folks. By the way, they're still hiring me. But yeah, I feel like, kind of gloves off, bare knuckle brawl. And feel like I've earned it.
Love to hear that. Let's wrap it up there. Ken, thank you so much for your time. His book is Radical Curiosity. In fact, Michael Murphy, who is the founder of Esalen, says it's Esalen, in fact, was the mecca of the
sort of the mothership of the human potential movement.
The mothership of it all. And he said, quote, it is a modern day Siddhartha story, which of course is a story about a man's journey to self-discovery. And but folks, this is not just any man. And when you read the book, you will totally understand that.
And I want to say that all of the earnings from this book, all of my earnings are being donated to Esalen Institute. So buy a lot of copies. Yep. It's not going to make me rich. I already am doing fine financially. It's all going to support this not-for-profit.
It really is a fabulous book. Ken Dychtwald, thank you for your time.
Good to be with you, Mark.
It's good to be with Ken Dychtwald. And I think you see what I mean when I said early on, he is the guy. In fact, after we spent some time together, he looked at me and he said, I think we're brothers from another mother. And there will be more with Ken Dychtwald and Growing Bolder moving forward. Spending a few days with Ken and his team was really amazing. The good news is for all of us, the good news for our culture as a whole is that Ken Dychtwald is not done yet. In fact, I don't believe this guy will ever be done. The desire to make a difference runs very, very deep in Dr. Ken Dychtwald. His book, Radical Curiosity, is available just about everywhere, including, if it's not there right now, it will be there soon, the Growing Bolder bookstore, which you really should check out because it is unique. In fact, I think it's the only bookstore in the entire world in which you can listen to or watch an interview with the author. That's our rule. We don't put a book in the store unless and until we have interviewed the author. So check it out, growingbolder.com/bookstore, or you can just go to the main page at growingbolder.com and click on the resources tab. Our thanks to Dr. Ken Dychtwald for visiting Growing Boulder headquarters and being so generous with his time and his insights. And of course, our thanks to you guys for stopping by each and every week. So have a great weekend, and we'll see you right back here the next time something cool happens.